Bună ziua tuturor, bine ați venit la Celebrity Talks, o serie de interviuri speciale realizate de UVT Media Hub. Îl avem alături de noi pe Edward Nicolae Luttwak, o mare personalitate atât în Statele Unite cât și în România. De curând a devenit doctor honoris causa al Universității de Vest din Timișoara. Sir, thank you for accepting to have this dialogue today.
Mulțumesc.
I have a quote for you. You might know the author. I mean, I'm pretty sure you know the author, and I'm pretty sure you know the book as well, Homo Ludens, published in 1938, I think. Let me read you the quote, and let's see what you think about it. Game is combat, and combat is game. What do you think about that?
I completely disagree. I think that what is true is that the heart of the European civilization had to do with war. It had to do with the competition between different groups and then different states. Peaceful competition. They were showing off with their art. You know, every little state wanted to have a beautiful capital. You know, the heart of an American city consists of some intersections, and there's a bank. European cities, there is the governor, the palace, the king. So war was the driving force of Europe. The experiment of a peaceful Europe since 1945 is a not highly satisfactory experiment. So there was always war, there was destruction. Then there was reconstruction, energy. People died, and then after the war, the soldiers came home, and they made many children. And that is how Europe lived. So Homo Ludens, not, because Homo Ludens is playing. War is a game. That's not true. War is the driving force of European civilization. The energy developed was such that the Europeans went all over the world, governing the whole world with their energy, but the energy went into science, into invention, into discovery, you know, and going all the way deep in the Amazon. I have a ranch deep in the Amazon, and I'm not the first to go there. The first went there was about 1780. And my family came to Timișoara before 1780, when it was still the Pashalik of Timișoara. They came in under Ottoman rule. There were Sephardi Jews, Baruch, you know, from Salonika and so on. And what was this area, Banat, and how did it become what it is? Through a whole series of conflicts. And these conflicts didn't destroy the people of Banat, it made them into kind of high achievers.
So in a way, this would be a positive perspective on war.
Yes, that is to say that the theory of this is that the foundation constitution of the European civilization is the Iliad of Homer. The Iliad of Homer is the constitution, which is that what counts is achievement, heroism, glory, creation, and from the same spirit came, of course, Greek philosophy and aesthetics and so on. So all of this came from a dynamic energy. And this dynamic energy did build cathedrals, built factories, wrote books, and also did war. And I would say the intellectual mistake is to think that you can take war out of it.
So you cannot take war out
continues.
of it. You cannot take war out of it.
No, well, but I understand why people did after World War II, because of the fact that the nuclear weapon was exceeding the culminating point of utility. Culminating point. You see, let's say a pistol is better than a knife. Okay, a machine gun is better than a pistol. But then the nuclear weapon didn't go up in utility, usefulness. It went to a culminating point and declined. So that with the nuclear weapon, the weapon is useless. Okay, if you have a fight, like the Americans fought the war in Korea, their nuclear weapons, they couldn't do anything with them. The nuclear weapon was less useful than ice cream. And this happened to, of course, India, Pakistan fight the war. They have nuclear weapons. So there was a reason why war ended in Europe, but however, it's missing in Europe. And what you have instead is this the European Union attempt to do bureaucratic management. Sometimes it's done well, sometimes it's not done well, but the real problem is you took out the machine from the car. Europe is not moving because the engine isn't there. Now, I understand why the engine isn't there, but that is a fact of life. That's why there's lack of energy. Europe was always energy, everybody followed, and that is the difference. When I'm in Timișoara, I first think that Timișoara is successful because it has a city mythos. Mm-hmm. The city mythos is that Timișoara is the best city in Romania, the best city maybe in the whole region, potentially the best city in the world. That's a good mythos. However, Europe does not have a good mythos. Young Europeans are very demoralized. They either want to help everybody else or they want to emigrate. The products of the best French education are living in San Francisco. When you go to a park in San Francisco, you hear French.
Okay, but at the same time, war is bloody, war is tragic.
Yes, that's true. That is to say, if you read the Iliad, Homer is not a liar. Homer doesn't say war is glory, music. No, he says the spear entered his side, went through and broke his bone. Homer is completely, Iliad is totally realistic, not sentimental, not romantic, not this kind of fantasy. The Iliad, Homer describes how a warrior is receiving the sword and the light went out in his eyes. So yes, of course not. But I have been working in strategy all my life, and not just writing books or writing policy papers or making speeches. I've been involved in wars, many wars, and I experienced it. And therefore, when I'm in Europe, I realize what's wrong in Europe. That they took out the engine.
We need a war?
They took out the engine. The competition between Netherlands and Belgium, between Luxembourg and Belgium. This created the dynamic energy. Putting bureaucrats to administer it took away the energy.
But can we maybe imagine a distinction between competition and war? Is war really necessary? We go that far?
Okay. What is necessary is competition. Mm-hmm. What is absolutely necessary is competition. But what happened was that in order to end war, they stopped the competition.
Okay.
Instead of competing, you send people to Brussels to maneuver the bureaucracy. And it's not funny, actually, and it's a very real thing, that the most successful country in Europe is Switzerland, which is not in the European Union, is not in NATO, is not in the United Nations, and it has a very good mythos, national mythos in good working order. And part of it is that 18-year-old Swiss boys look forward to the day when they go to the army, they get the gun, they get trained. In a country that doesn't fight wars.
By the way, sir, many people in Romania still believe that in order for a boy or a young man to become a real man somehow, they should do military service. What do you think about
Absolutely
this?
Correct. Absolutely correct. You take an 18-year-old boy out from his home, away from his iPhone, and you get him to march, and you get him to have a rifle and to shoot and to sleep under a tent. I hope that this is so. That is not a bureaucratic military service. Or first you cannot be at home, you cannot do anything you want to do. Instead you are in a sort of caserne, how do you say a barracks?
Kazarma.
You're in a kazarma, doing nothing, waiting for the sergeant. You're supposed to go training. Then the sergeant says, we can't go because the truck isn't ready. We don't have this, we don't have that. And so you don't take a young person out of his life and bore him. the service should be the way they do it in Finland, they do it in Israel, they do it in Switzerland, which is you run, very short service, 6 months, something like that, and you are running, and it's exciting, and it's difficult, and you're always hungry and thirsty, and you need to sleep, but you don't waste time. The military service of many countries, where they take them from their life, and then they put them in the caserma waiting. You're just sitting there waiting for somebody to tell you something to do. That's terrible.
Sir, what if someone would tell you that, okay, but military service is alienating,
Alienating from what?
From culture, for instance. I don't have time to read. I don't have time to...
That is correct. During this training time, which is very short, it's very physical.
Mm-hmm.
It's the sky, the earth, effort, and so on, and you hardly have time to read. But you can always carry a book of poetry with you. Soldiers throughout history carried with them a kind of book that you can read 7 times. The book of poetry makes you think, and there's been plenty of soldiers who wrote poetry that you can do. But this is an interval. It's a short interval, which is you're a child. And you have childish life, then you will have grown-up child, then you'll have a family maybe, you work, whatever. In between, your country calls you. And you go for the country, but also you go for yourself. And that's when you can do it and so on. I mean, I was in the British Army, and the British Army was non-ideological. Why in the Army? Well, because in that time there was military service, compulsory, but I joined as a cadet, volunteer. I was not 18, I was 16. And you do it for the fun, for the excitement, to go to Borneo.
Some people would say it's traumatic.
I don't think so. I think that, look, I ended up in Borneo. They sent us to Borneo. There was the jungle. I fell in love with the jungle. I still have a ranch, with a lot of jungle in the Amazon. And we were on the jungle, on a beach. There were the local Dayak headhunters, and it was fantastic, it was like living in a film. And of course, it was terribly hot. We were bitten. There was some shooting, a little fighting and so on. And everything was, of course, wrong. Everything was wrong. The uniforms were wrong because we came with European uniforms made of wool. Our weapons were wrong. They were too long. In the jungle, you need short weapon. Everything was wrong, but, you're a teen, and it was very exciting. Very exciting. And that's why I remained in this business. And I did a lot of fighting as a contractor, in different countries. Then I was, in other words, I write books about war, but I practice it. It's not like somebody writing about cooking, and he never cooked an egg, And I see this character to it. I would be against military service of 2 years, 3 years, something. I'm against any military service when a young man is wasting his hours. When you are 18, you don't want to waste your time. So this type of traditional service, whether it's sergeant and everybody's walking, saluting, parading, saluting, and then doing nothing, and being in the barracks waiting for orders. No, I mean this kind of highly dynamic service that you actually have in Switzerland. In Switzerland, they start climbing a mountain. Okay, the first march they do is like that.
Should women do the same thing?
Sorry?
Women, should they do the same
thing?
Well,
listen, my wife is a very old lady. She's never tired. She's never
very
sporty.
beautiful.
You've seen her.
Yes.
She's never tired. She's never this. She's never that. She's always interested in something new. Well, she did military service. She was an officer in Israeli army, and from that she got a lot of physical courage, a lot of self, possession and confidence, and so on. She came with me on a lot of missions in different countries. We were in the Himalayas. We were in Indonesia against pirates and all kinds of stuff. Military service for women is highly suitable for the women who respond to it. It's true of men, of course, also. There are men who cannot do it. There are just not. And in a good army, they say, okay, go home. Because they don't start doing bureaucratic stuff about obligation. There are women who really like it, and they become sporty and so on. So what you get from this experience, my daughter also was in the army for two and a half years. She was a tank gunner. What you get from this is great confidence. Great confidence. You can do it. There's a problem, you can do it.
Interesting perspective.
Yeah,
and
but
because
you go to Finland, a population where everybody has been in the army. Ask them what the army was like. And you know that they live in southern Finland, in Helsinki. 90% of the population is in southern Finland, which is called, but European. All the training is done in Lapland, in the far north. In the winter is minus 35, right? So it's very difficult, and if you make a mistake, you die, right? And in Switzerland, that referendum is a democratic country. Do we want military service or not? So some people said no, all the young people said yes. All the ones who were going to the army all said yes, and the referendum failed. In Finland, they would never do a referendum, because in Finland, nobody would say no. They would get 1%.
Do you think they said yes because they crave for adventure?
No,
or they said yes because of patriotism?
They crave for the test, for the difficulty, for the challenge, for the satisfaction. And in Israeli army, and the Finnish army also, in Israeli army, they take people on wheelchairs. They don't take just people who can jump from airplanes. They take people who are physically limited. In Israeli army, they take people who have a degree of autism, Asperger and so on. They put them to do photographic interpretation. It's not just for, athletes and champions.
Sir, I have one last question for you. I'm imagining that this video is going to be watched by many students. Which book they should read, written by Edward Luttwak?
Well, I think that they should read the only book that's directly relevant to Romanians, which is the grand strategy of the Byzantine Empire. So that book is about strategy, and it's about the Byzantine Empire, but it's also about the cultures that existed here, okay? Because it deals with the Dacians, the Romans, and then Ottomans, when this was the Pashalik, the Byzantines, of course, and it deals with all of these cultural levels, and the center, which is the Orthodox religion. The Byzantine Empire was centered on the Orthodox religion. And the Orthodox religion had different characteristics. One of them is that it preserved all of the Greek literature. All of the Greek literature, including the not only Homer, Iliad, all the philosophers. These Byzantine monks copied these books, otherwise they'll disappear. But they preserved everything, including the homosexual poetry of Septimius. They preserved the whole Greek culture, and they brought it with them, and this was carried by the Byzantines with their empire and their church, and Romanian culture itself has a very strong element of it. Both the underlayer of Orthodox underlayer, but also overlayer from the Phanariot culture that was brought directly from Constantinople, And the Phanariot were terrible rulers, terrible. They were exploiting, and people were starving and all that, but they also brought a culture.
Maybe they should also read Strategia, Logica războiului și a păcii, which is over there.
This book, Strategy, the Logic of War and Peace, produced by the university, this book is about analytical essence. And it's about strategy, it's about war, it's about peace, but mostly it's about analysis to be successful. It's actually an analysis of how people and institutions, armies, peoples, individuals can be successful. The mechanism of successfulness and the avoidance, the strategy of logic of war peace is about the logic of being successful. So how, for example, you are not saying, I should have thought about that, or I should have remembered that, or I should have done that, which is a terrible thing for anybody, especially for young people. It's terrible when a young person says, oh, I made a mistake, I should have thought about that. So this book is about war and about peace, and it, of course, the central subject is why human history is such a long, long list of crimes and mistakes. Crimes and mistakes.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for sharing ideas today, for being part of this very intriguing and interesting dialogue. Vă mulțumesc și dumneavoastră că ați fost alături de noi. Vă invit, desigur, să urmăriți și celelalte producții UVT Media Hub. Cele bune și pe curând!